Okay, this is our first screencast for our Matlab course. So, in the class we talked about how to use the graphic user interface, right? And uh, we talked about how to navigate the file system from within Matlab. We talked about how to use the graphic way for navigating the file system and how to use a few commands in the command window to navigate the file system. And we talked about how to look for help, right? And Matlab is a self-documenting system, and it allows us to find help from the system itself. A few of you still having problem accessing Matlab, so if you don't have Matlab that's already installed in your own computer, right, you can try to access the university's version of the Matlab, and the Matlab is actually installed on every computer in all the different computer labs scattered throughout the campus and also in the IT building. So if you haven't been to the IT building, you can just try to find out where the IT building actually is. So you can just Google UWIO IT building. It's telling you Information Technology Center, University of Wyoming, right? And it's this building, right? And if you haven't been there before, it's not too far. It's not too far from the main campus. It's suppose uh, maybe I should do a Google map, and that's gonna show. Let me see, uh, University of Wyoming, Information Technology, right? Uh, then that's the Information Technology, right? So that's East Iverson. This is Grand. This is Grand. So that's the main campus. This is the pasture, right? That's the grassland in the middle of the campus. So what you have to do is to uh, walk along the 15th, walk along the 15th, and then walk along East Ivan Street, and then it's gonna bring you to the Information Technology Center, right? That's one of the ways for getting there. And then uh, there's also a shortcut. So this is actually the COE library. This is the COE library, and this is the student union, right? Panda Express is here. So if you walk out of the student union from the other door, from the back door, and then walk along this street, right? And then it's gonna take you to the Information Technology Center, right? 60 minutes of walk, right? So inside of the Information Technology Center, there's lots of computers, lots of PCs sitting there, right? You can log in any one of them, and you can get access to Matlab. Lots of computers on the first floor of this Information Technology Center, and of course you can also find a computer lab in your own library or in your own building, for example, right? So we're actually teaching in the geology building. Geology building has like two computer labs, and every computer inside those two computer labs actually has a MATLAB installed on it. And then the engineering building has student computer labs, and you can use computers inside those labs also, right? Um, and I believe UWIO-IT actually has a web page, computer lab. It actually has a actually so if you just Google UWIO computer labs, then it's gonna take you to this web page. It's actually showing you all the computer labs on campus, right? And you can just find one that's close to you, right? And I believe every computer in those on-campus computer labs should have MATLAB installed in it already, right? Um, so that's by using a physical lab that's on campus or either on campus or on the inside the IT building. And if you don't want to go to those physical computer labs, you can use a online computer lab. That's what they call remote labs. So if you just Google UWIO remote lab, if you just Google UWIO remote lab, then it's gonna show you remote lab system. Right, just click on the first link. Then it's gonna take you to this particular web page. It's called a remote lab. Right, remote lab is a lab that's inside your browser. Right. So here you have a link that's called a connect to the remote lab system. See, and you can just click on it, and then it's gonna take you to this page. It's gonna ask you for a login. So you give it a login, your username, and then your password. This is actually the same login for your university account, email account. So if you have a university email account, then you should have a login that allows you to log into this remote lab system, right? And then you can just click on login, right? It's telling me error. Click for details. Uh, Looks like my Java has some problem. But once you see this thing, just click on run because it's a Java build interface. So and then it's gonna show you three pools. You can think of these three pools, pool A, pool B, and pool C, as a collection of computers, and you can access those computers in either in any of those pools, right? So I'll just use pool A. So I'm gonna double click on pool A. Double click on it. Then it's gonna open a very big window on my computer, right? But let me just make it smaller. Make it smaller. Right? It's displaying some kind of authorization information, right? And then I'll just click on OK. It's actually running the Windows 7 Enterprise, and then you have to wait for a while for the entire operating system to load into your web browser. Actually, it's actually a window in your web browser. So let me just make the window slightly bigger, and you guys can see better. So it's telling you that it's preparing my desktop, right? And you can sort of see the Windows logo is being loaded up, right? It's preparing my desktop. Once you see the Windows logo, it means that the operating system is up and running. So it doesn't really matter which computer you're actually using. It might be your own laptop, it might be your own desktop, but as long as you can access the browser, then you can access this remote lab system, right? And this remote lab system actually works pretty much the same as the as a physical desktop computer, right? Except that it's actually running in your browser. So depending upon the speed of your internet connection, it's gonna have a different kind of response speed. So here's the start button of the Windows, right? You click on it. I'm actually on a quite slow internet connection for now, so it's not responding very quickly. And then click on all programs, and then you have math programs. See, and then you have Matlab. You can just click on Matlab, and then you're gonna launch Matlab inside this browser window actually, and then everything works just like on a desktop, right? So that's another way of using Matlab, accessing Matlab, right? Just from browser. And the advantage of this remote lab is that there's no limit on seats, almost no limit on the number of seats actually. So you have three pools, right? Pool A, Pool B, and Pool C. I'm pretty sure that you can always find a workable version in one of those pools, right? So once you're done working with Matlab or practicing, you can just log off, right? So So it's not really doing anything, right? So for now, it's just trying to sort of log off. So I'm just gonna close this window, right? Let me see if I can close it. No, it's not responding. Maybe it's just still doing its own thing. And okay, looks like it has finished running stuff. The interface is not really that difficult to use. You guys can give it a try by yourself and just email me if you have any trouble or have any problems. I'm sure the people in IT in the IT department can also help you to to get things sorted out. Right? So two ways for you to access Matlab for free basically. One is to go to a computer lab, right? Student computer lab on campus or off campus, slightly off campus in the IT building. Another way is to use this remote lab system, right? So how do you actually get to this page? Just by Google UWIO remote lab, and then it's gonna take you to the right web page, right? And that's two different ways for accessing Matlab. If you don't want to pay like $100 to buy a version or buy a license and install it on your own computer, right? Okay, so let's get back to talking about Matlab. So in our last class, I was trying to show you around this particular graphic user interface. So the first time you open Matlab, it's gonna give you this kind of a interface, right? You have three tabs on the top: home, plots, apps. Those are three default tabs, right? And depending upon the context of your work environment, more tabs could show up. Sometimes you will see a editor tab, right? Sometimes you're gonna see a variable tab, right? Depending upon the particular context where you are actually in which you are working, right? So let's go back to the home tab, right? And lots of buttons in it, right? We haven't looked at lots of these kind of buttons: analyze code, run in time. Once we start to develop codes, those buttons will become useful, right? But for now, let's just ignore them for now. And then you have quick access buttons on top. That's the quick access buttons. Two most important things is redo and undo. These two, undo and redo, right? So if you hover your cursor over those icons, you're gonna see the tip showing up, telling you what these things are. And then copy paste, you see, copy paste, right? And it also allows you to add new shortcuts to it, right? It's configurable. And then there's a search box. This search box allows you to find help about a certain sort of topic or something, right? So it's going to search the Matlab self-documenting system and then display something, right? And we talked about how to use this particular bar, how to navigate through the file system using this particular bar, right? You have this kind of, so go up one folder, right? Go to the previous folder. I was showing you how to sort of navigate through the file system by using those buttons. And then you have this current folder box. It's going to display the content in the current folder. So underneath /home /chain, I have all those subfolders and files, right? That's a graphic way for you to navigate through the file system, right? Everything is clickable, right? If you click on those arrows, it's going to display the options. So home is just one of the subdirectories underneath /. So if you are using a PC, you could see different things. I'm on a Linux operating system now, so it's displaying all the subdirectories that's on the same level as home, basically, right? This home is just one of them. If you want to switch to a different directory, so suppose I want to switch to boot, right? Then you're gonna see different things, right? So if you want to go back to home, where's home? Oh, that's home, right? That's home. And then underneath home, you have other different subdirectories, right? For now, it's just a /chain, and then underneath /chain, you have other subdirectories. Suppose I want to go to music, right? I have nothing in music for now. It's pictures, maybe. I have a screenshot. See, so that's sort of the graphic way for you to navigate through the file system. So if I go to download, for example, right, and then Dropbox, right? Dropbox. So I have lots of subfolders inside of my Dropbox. So if I want to go to my books, this particular subdirectory, I can click either here and then go to my books, right? Or if I go on, or another way of going into my books is just by double clicking on this particular uh, folder icon in the current folder window. Will also take you to that particular subdirectory, right? That's the graphical way for navigating through the file system, for finding stuff, for finding your files. And I was also telling you how to actually use the command line to navigate through the file system. Three commands that are very important. The first one we talked about is pwd. Pwd basically tells you your current location in this very complicated nested file system, right? It's basically telling you the current location. So at this particular moment, I am actually underneath home, PoChain, Dropbox, my books, this particular subfolder, right? So my books is a subfolder of Dropbox, and then Dropbox is a subfolder of PoChain, and then PoChain is a subfolder of home, right? So pwd, present working directory, allows you to find where you are in the file system at this moment, right? And then you have another command that's called AOS list. So AOS is going to list all the subfolders and the files in your current working directory or present working directory, right? And the stuff that's being displayed in the command window is exactly the same as the stuff that's being displayed in the current folder, except that this display is in sort of the text format, right? It's a text string, but this is sort of a graphic display. Right? You have an icon in front of it. You can click on it, right? And then there's a third command that's very important. That's called cd, or change directory. You can think of a directory just as a folder. It's the same thing basically, right? cd means change directory. Change it to what directory? So you can follow a argument behind this particular command. Suppose I want to go to this f3dwi directory. So I just do cd f3dwi. Sometimes you don't really have to type all the letters in a name. You can just use the tab key to autocomplete, right? So cd f3dwi, and then it's going to take you to the subdirectory inside of the f3dwi subfolder, right? And then you can sort of see all the files that's being displayed in the current folder has changed, right? These are all the files that's inside of the f3dwi subfolder. And you can sort of see the directory on the top has changed to f3dwi, which is a subfolder inside of my books. See, right. So if you want to go back to the previous folder, to the parent folder, go up one level. You can either click on this button. It's going to take you up, right? It's going to take you up. Or another way of doing that is by doing cd dot dot. So in Matlab, these two dots actually represents the parent directory. So cd dot dot means that I want to go up. I want to go up one level. So I don't want to stay in this f3dwi subdirectory anymore. I want to go to my books subfolder, right? I want to go to this particular folder. So if I do that, I go up one level. You see, my books, now I'm in the my books folder, right? I was previously in f3dwi folder, but now I'm in my books folder. My books folder has three subfolders, right? f3dwi, fpsda, full 3D seismic waveform inversion. I have three subdirectories here, right? That's cd dot dot. See, so cd allows you to change to any directories or subdirectories. So if I want to go to a certain directory, that's suppose I want to go to Dropbox underneath ebooks, suppose, right? I want to go to home PoChain, but instead of Dropbox underneath Dropbox, I want to go to the subfolder that's called ebooks. So how am I going to do that? I'll do this thing: cd home, right? PoChain. Again, autocomplete using tab, and then Dropbox, right? And then instead of using my books, I want to do ebooks, right? So now I am inside of that ebooks subdirectory, and then I can see 3 PDF files inside of that ebooks directory, right? And And if you want to do an LS, it's going to display the same 3 PDF files that's listed here. See, that's how you can actually use CD and LS to navigate through the file system, right? And you can always use PWD to check what's actually your location in the file system, right? And the reason that you have to be very careful about the file system is because you will need the file system in order to store both data, right? Data files, and also your scripts and functions, MATLAB scripts and MATLAB functions. You need to know, or you need to find those scripts and data in your file system. So that's important. So finding out what's actually the file system, how to navigate through the file system is very important. It's actually very important, right? So CD allows you to follow an argument behind it, right? So you can decide which directory you want to switch to, or which folder you want to switch to by following CD command with some kind of argument, right? And LS also allows you to do that, to use an argument. So if you want to look at what's actually the content underneath a certain folder, you can also use that as your follow LS by a particular command, a particular directory. So suppose I want to look into home po chain Dropbox, right? You can just copy and paste it. Then it's going to list all the content underneath home po chain Dropbox. See? So this is different from doing. This is actually different from by doing doing a CD, right? So if you look at your current directory, you are still inside this ebooks subdirectory underneath Dropbox, right? If you do an LS without an argument, any argument, it's just going to display the content inside this ebooks subfolder, right? But if you follow LS with a certain folder name or complete path of the folder, then it's going to just display the content underneath that particular folder, right? So that's how you can actually use LS and CD, right? So if you don't feel comfortable about using these two commands, you can type help ls, for example, right? Then this documentation is gonna tell you how to use it. All those links are clickable, right? So if you don't feel comfortable about using CD, you can type help CD. See? Right? So if you don't feel comfortable about using PWD, then you can type help PWD. Right? That's the 3 commands for us to navigate through the file system, in addition to using the graphic way by clicking buttons. Right? It's very important. These 3 commands are very important. Right? And then we talked about how to use the self-documenting system, right, to find all the different codes or functions that's provided by Matlab already. So help just allows you to search for different functions, right? Display how to use a particular function. So if you just type help without any kind of argument, it's just going to display the top level content of the self-documented system, right? Could be very long, right? So, but if you actually follow it with some kind of argument, like what we did, like help ls, then it's going to just display how to use that particular command. Right? Suppose we want to look at how to use the command plot. We can just type help plot. Right? Then it's going to tell you how to use the plot function that's already provided by Matlab. See? Right? And another command that's useful is to use look for. Is called look for. Right? If you don't really know the name of a particular function, but what you want to look for is some kind of a keyword or some kind of a topic, or you want to find all the functions that's related to a certain topic, right? Suppose you want to find all the functions that's related, for example, to wavelets. Look for wavelet, for example, right? Then it's gonna search through all the self-documenting system and look for all the commands that's related to this particular topic, wavelet, or particular keyword, wavelet, right? So here it's actually giving you one of the examples, wavenet. That's actually the name of a particular command, and some explanation about what this command is for, right? Creates a wavelet network, nonlinear estimator, that kind of thing, right? DSP wavelet denoise, DSP wavelet transmultiplexer, right? These kind of things are all those commands or all those Matlab functions are related to wavelets. Actually, it's got lots of functions related to wavelets, right? And then you can browse through them and find the function that you need, right? So on the first level, you have help and look for to help you to find the codes that you want to use. And then on the second level, you have a quite useful website that's called File Exchange, right? So I'm just gonna sort of switch to this browser, right? That's called a Matlab File Exchange. So inside of the Google, you can just Google Matlab File Exchange, and then it's gonna take you to this web page. Again, you can search for particular functions or other people's codes that's related to a particular topic, right? And then you can download their codes and try to make it to work on your data, that kind of thing, right? That's called a file exchange, Matlab file exchange. You don't really have to remember the complete web address. All you have to do is to Google Matlab file exchange. That's the second level for you to find reusable codes, right? And in the class, I was sort of teaching you guys how to use Matlab to generate the codes automatically, right? Matlab actually has lots of buttons, but all those buttons can generate codes for you, right? So you don't really have to write your own codes. You can just click a button and Matlab is gonna produce the codes for you. And then all you have to do is to save that code and then use it later on for a different data set or something, right? So last time we were looking at some kind of car data. So let me try to sort of grab that piece of data, and then I'm gonna show you how to continue working on that car data. So once you have finished downloading the two spreadsheets for car data, you have to sort of navigate through your file system to get to those data. So what I want to do is to make sure that the current folder in this window, I can see those two Excel spreadsheets. When I download those two Excel spreadsheets, I stored them. I stored them underneath the downloaded subdirectory in my home folder. So all I have to do is to sort of either click on this navigation toolbar or by using CD command. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to use the CD command to switch to the download folder in my home directory. So in your case, it could be a different directory. It depends upon what's actually being displayed here. Right? It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter which operating system you are actually using. So on my Linux operating system, it looks like a /home pochain, and then downloaded is supposed to be the downloaded subfolder is supposed to be one of the one of the subfolders inside of my pochain directory. So what I'm going to do is that cd home pochain, and then download. Right. So once I type this particular command, I can see the two spreadsheets. Right, it's right here. That's I downloaded from the class website. So I just click on one of them and then right click, and then it's gonna give you a context menu. And I'm gonna select import data. Right. I want to import this spreadsheet data into my Matlab workspace. For now, workspace doesn't have anything in it. It's empty, right? But after I finish importing it, it's gonna show lots of variables. So I'm gonna do import data, right? And then it's gonna open up this particular what they call the import wizard. The import wizard. So it's basically displaying the Excel spreadsheets for me, right? And all the blue stuff, all the blue cells all the blue cells are the selected cells. And then the top row is going to display the name of each of the column. Right? Do you see it? Right. But for now it's sort of grayed out. You have two boxes that's actually showing the range of the selected cells, right? So the range is from A2 to X2338. A2, that's the first cell. Right? And then what's the last cell? Last cell is here, I think. Oh no, last cell is actually here. Right? that's x, right? That's x 2338, x 2338, right? So basically, this range box is actually showing you the selected data. So you are gonna just import those selected data. Any data that's not selected are not gonna be imported into the workspace. So you have to be careful about what are the selected cells, right? So the default is that all the cells are being selected except for the first row. Why it's not selecting the first row? Because Matlab is actually intelligent enough to know that the first row is being used for storing the names of the variables. Right? The first column, first row is actually displaying the year. It's a text string. It's telling you it's year. And then manufacturing name, right? Car line, car truck, engine display or something. Please, that kind of thing. See? So it's actually telling you variable name row, which is 1. Right? So you can adjust the variable name row by clicking on these two buttons, or you can change the range of the selection by using this drill down menu, right? By changing the content inside of this box also. It's configurable, right? And then after you have imported the data into the workspace, into the Matlab workspace, what's going to be the containers that's going to be used for storing the entire data, right? The container we're going to use is called column vectors. So this box is basically allows you to select what's going to be the type of the containers used for storing all those different kinds of data. The default is just the column vectors. A vector is basically just an array. A column vector means that it's just a column array, right? So this thing looks like a table, right? And then each column of that table is going to be stored in a separate column vector. See? And then there's some other information. So unimportant cells, replace them with not number. NaN means not number. You're now sort of doing a replace or something. These are all configurable. You guys can try it by yourself. It doesn't have to be something that I show you. You can just explore by yourself. All those things are clickable. And then the last button that's important is this box, import selection, right? And then you also have this box, right? It actually allows you to click to choose either import data or generate scripts or generate functions. In your case, you probably have another item that's called generate function, right? But here, let's just import all the data as column vectors, right? So as soon as you finish clicking on this button, you're going to see lots of, let me close this window. You're going to see lots of the variables in the workspace now. All those variables are called column vectors. See? Right? Because there are like 2,337 rows and 1 column. Right? And then you have 2 different cell basically tells you the type of the value that's being stored in that column vector. Double just means it's a number. Cell just means it's a text string. And then you have min max, that kind of thing. Right? So if you want to configure this particular workspace window, you can just right click. Right? So then it's going to allow you to actually configure what's going to be displayed. Right? What's going to be displayed here. I clicked at the wrong place. You should actually click on one of those tabs actually. So if you want to see all those checked things are actually being displayed. So if I want to see the range, for example, you're going to add another tab here. That's the range. See? So if you want to sort of make a graph or make a plot of any of those column vectors, you can just select one of those items. For example, I want to look at the correlation between rated horsepower and MPG. What I'm going to do is that I click rated horsepower first. Just select it, highlight it, and then hold down the control key, CTRL key, and then click on the MPG, right? And then I go to the plots tab. Here, go to the plots tab, and then there's an icon that's called scatter. It's going to make a scatter plot. So the horizontal axis is going to be rated horsepower, and then the vertical axis is going to be MPG. Right? It's basically every circle is actually one car. You can think of every circle as one car, and for that particular car, its rated horsepower is on its horizontal axis, and the corresponding MPG is on the vertical axis, right? So we have like more than 2,000 cars in here, and every car has a horizontal axis and a vertical axis, and the horizontal axis is going to tell you what's actually the rated horsepower, and the vertical axis is going to tell you what's actually the MPG, right? So last time I was showing you guys how to actually generate a script by using the import wizard, right? So if you wanna clear out all the variable, you can go to the home tab and then clear workspace. Click on it, right? Okay. Right. A different way for doing the same thing is by typing a command called clear all. Then it's gonna clear out the workspace. You're gonna start over again, right? Again, let's try to import the same data. We are opening the import wizard, right? But this time I'm gonna import it into a different data structure. I'm gonna import into a container that's a table. That's a table. We're gonna talk about a matrix and a CL arrays in our later lectures, but now for this particular example, we're gonna use table as our data structure. So inside of this Matlab workspace, it's gonna generate a data structure that's called a table, right? And then I'm gonna change the name of that container from data to car data, right? And this time I'm not gonna sort of click on this import data button. Instead, I'm gonna click on generate a script button, right? In your case, you can try generate a function instead of generate a script, but for this particular example, let's just generate a script. So if you go back to the Matlab window, you're gonna see a lot more tabs actually, right? At the beginning, you have just the home, plots, apps, these 3 tabs, but now you have 3 more tabs. One of them is called editor, and then you have a publish and a view tabs. And then inside of this window, you are actually getting a new window basically. This window is called editor, and then untitled star. The reason it's called untitled star is because the particular text file that just generated by Matlab, the particular script that you have generated by the Matlab, doesn't have a name yet. So it's called untitled star. Right? Looks like that. But you can save it. Right? This is the Matlab generated script, and it's actually giving you the information about this particular script. So every line that's starting with a percentage sign is actually a comment line. It's a comment line. A comment line means what? The text that's following it is written for human beings. It's not for the machine. Right? Matlab is going to ignore all those lines that's in green. Right? It's not going to try to execute any of those lines that's in green. Right? So this is actually explanations about what's actually the purpose of this particular script and how you can actually use it, that kind of thing. Right? So now let's try to save it. So now you have this editor tab, right? And then there's a button that's called save. You can just click on it. So the first time you try to save something, it's going to ask you to fill up this particular dialog box, right? So first of all, it's asking you where do you want to save it, in which subfolder you want to save it, right? For now, it's actually using downloads, right? But you can sort of put it anywhere you want. But all you have to do is to remember where you actually stored it. So for now, let's just store it on the downloads, right? And then it's going to ask you to select the file name. The default file name is untitled m, right? But you don't have to use that name. You can use say import script, right? You can just save it as import script, and then click on save. So now in the current folder box, you're gonna see that script that you just selected, saved, right? You can if you double click on it. So suppose I close this window. I'm closing this editor window. As soon as you close the editor window, the 3 tabs, editor, publish, and view tab, has disappeared, right? all those tabs are context sensitive, right? So now you are actually going back to the command window, right? But if you want to open the editor window, all you have to do is to double click on this particular script. If you double click on it, you're going to open the editor window. Now you have editor, publish, and view, these three tabs again, right? So that's the codes that's generated by Matlab for importing this particular Excel spreadsheet into the workspace, right? But for now, we haven't executed this particular script yet, so you don't really see anything inside the workspace, right? The workspace is still empty because you haven't actually imported the data yet. So at this stage, you have two ways for executing this particular script. One thing that you can do is to click on this run button, right? You click on this run button. This run button is inside this editor tab. If you click on it, then it's gonna execute this import script, and then it's gonna generate this car data. And this car data is actually a table, right? It's a table. It's telling you it's a table, and how many rows and columns this table actually has, right? That's the first way for executing a script. A second way for executing a script is to type the name of the script in the command window. So let me clear out this particular variable. I'm going to the home tab, and then clear workspace. Right. So now workspace is empty again. But this time I'm gonna execute this script by typing the name of the script. The name of the script is called import script. Right. And then I'm gonna type the name of the script and then execute it in the command window. So after a while, I also see this particular table inside my workspace, right? So now let's it's a table and it has a certain dimension, right? But what's actually the content of this particular table? We don't really know, right? We can see the content of that spreadsheet in the import wizard, but now we have closed the import wizard. We don't really have to use the import wizard at all, right? We don't really need to use the import wizard anymore because we have this script now. This script actually has exactly the same functionality as that import wizard. We don't need that import wizard anymore. All we have to do is to execute this particular script. And suppose I want to use a different data set. For example, I don't want to use 2004 data.xlsx anymore. I want to use 2007. All I have to do is to change the file name here, right? I just can change the 2004 to 2007. I'm just going to change it. See? And then I'm going to, after I have changed it, you sort of see the star here. The star means that this script hasn't been saved yet. So if you want your change to actually have effect, you have to save the script first. So how do you actually save it? You go to the editors tab again and then click on this save button. So as soon as you clicked on the save button, the star has disappeared, you see. So it means that your change has been saved to the disk. And now you can sort of try to execute this script again. Now you see another variable, right? That's another table. But now the dimension has changed. It's 2595 times 24. The column number is kind of the same, is exactly the same as your 2004 data, but the row number is different now, right? For the 2004 data, it's about 2,300 or something, but for the 2007 data, it's 2,500 or something. See? So this is actually 2007 data, and all you did was to change one digit, to change the file name. All you have to do is to change the file name to make the import script to work on a different data set. See, you don't even need to open the import wizard anymore, and you don't really have to understand how the import script actually works, right? You don't really need to read all the source code in order to understand what this script is actually doing. All you have to do is to know how to change the file name on this particular line. See, that's the advantage of using a script, right? It saves you lots of clicks, and it can be sort of automated, right? You don't really have to sort of manually change the file name. Later on, once you know how to write a function, I can show you how to actually sort of loop through, how do you actually process all the data files in a batch mode. Right? You don't really have to manually change the file name. You can automatically change the file name. Right? So let's still go back to the 2040. Let's still go back to the 2040. Let me save it again. And then this time I'm just gonna click on this button. Oh, let me clear the workspace. And then let me just run it. Click the edit tab and then run it. So car data, right? Again, we are going back to the 2004 data now. We're going back to the 2004 data. So now we have this table. We are not actually looking at this table in the Excel spreadsheet or import wizard anymore. But now we have it in our workspace. So if I want to look at this particular data set, this particular table, all I have to do is to double click on it. Double click. And now you are going to look at the tabs are going to change again. See? You have a variable tab and a view tab, in addition to home plots apps tab. Right, now you have a new tab that's called variable. See? And then you are looking at the content of this particular table in this window. And this window is what? This window is called variable car data window. It's a variable window. And if you actually look at this side, it's editor window. See, if you click here, it's going to take you back to the editor. You can look at the script. That's the import script. If you click here, you can look at the variable. That's the car data. Right. Right. So again, let's try to make a correlation plot between the horsepower and the MPG. Right. So where's the horsepower? Rated horsepower. Oh, rated horsepower here, right? If I wanna select the entire column, all I have to do is to click on the column head. Right, click on this thing. Then you're selecting the entire column, and then hold down the Control key, and then click on MPG. So now you have selected the two columns, right? Now if you want to make a scatter plot, again you can go to the Plots tab, right, and then select the scatter, and then it's gonna make this scatter plot for you, right? So as soon as you actually click on the scatter button here, the command window, the Matlab command window, is going to display a particular command, right? This command is actually equivalent to clicking this button, basically, right? By clicking this button, Matlab is basically just calling this particular function, and this is actually a Matlab intrinsic function. It's not something that's provided by a third party. It actually comes with Matlab. It's a Matlab function, right? And if you haven't used the scatter before, if you want to find out how to use scatter, you can type help scatter, and then it's going to display how you can actually use this Matlab function, right? It's telling you it's a scatter bubble plot, and a scatter, that's the name of the function, followed by parentheses, and inside these parentheses you have to put lots of input parameters into it. X, that's the horizontal axis, right? Y, that's the vertical axis, and then S and C are something else. Basically, C is going to specify the color of the symbols, and S is going to be something that's the area of each mark. Basically, that's the size of the marker. For now, the size of the marker is like a default value. It looks like something like that. It's a circle, but the size is kind of fixed to default size, right? But you can change the size also as some kind of input parameter, right? And for this particular command, the data that we're actually sending to the scatter function is basically X and Y. That's the X, that's car data dot rated horsepower, and then car data dot MPG, right? So car data dot rated horsepower corresponding to big X, and then car data dot mpg corresponding to y. See, S and C, we don't see any inputs for S and C, right? We don't see any inputs that corresponding to S and C, which means that Matlab is going to take the default values for S and C, right? Because we are not actually specifying S and C in our command here, right? So and both x and y is supposed to be vectors. So scatter is actually expecting at least two input parameters. Those are vectors. So car data is actually a table, right? It's a 2337. This many rows and 24 columns, right? So by doing this car data dot rated horsepower thing, you're actually extracting one column out of this 24 columns. The one column actually corresponding to this particular column. It's actually the 7th column of this table. Right? By doing car data dot rated horsepower, you are basically extracting the 7th column out of this table and using that column as your horizontal axis. See? And then by doing car data dot mpg, you're basically extracting the 22nd column from the table and then using that column as the y-axis, the vertical axis, right? So this dot thing is actually a symbol for you to extract those sub-containers that's nested in a bigger container. So car data is a bigger container, it's a table, right? But the rated horsepower is just a smaller container, which is just a one column that's being stored inside of this bigger container. That's a table. Right? That's how you can actually access smaller containers nested inside of a bigger container by using a dot. See? So in principle, I myself don't really have to sort of click on the scatter button in order to generate that plot. In principle, I can just type that command. I can just type this particular command in order to actually generate that figure, right? I have closed all the figures. Now, so let's just copy and paste it. Right? I can just use this particular command in the command window in order to generate that figure that I wanted. See? So now I have this particular figure now. Right? But this figure looks like a quite not very good looking figure, right? Let's try to sort of decorate it. We're gonna decorate it. How are we gonna decorate it? We're gonna add some labels to it, right? So the horizontal axis is rated horsepower, vertical axis is mpg, right? And then we're gonna add a title to it, right? So all those things can be done in the command line also, but here let's use a button, which is this button. It's called Show Plot Tools and Dock Figure, right? Let's click on this button. And then it's going to give you this particular window. And this window actually allows you to decorate the entire figure. Right? What I was telling you, I want to add labels to the different axes, right? So here you have a plot browser, you have an axis item, and then you have this kind of item that's basically the marker. Right? Each of the marker actually represents a car. Right? But let's click on the axis. For now, there's no title to it, right? Once you click on axis, then the property editor is going to display all the properties that you can change. So let's add an X label. Let's just say it's a rated horsepower. Right? And then as you type, you're going to see this rated horsepower being added to the horizontal axis, the X axis, right? So this is for x-axis. But for y-axis, let's just also add a label. Let's just call it mpg, miles per gallon. Right? That's miles per gallon. And then we need a title. Let's just call it fuel efficiency. Plot. Right? So this way the figure looks a lot better, right? But if you want to sort of enclose everything, into a box, you can click on this, check this box, right? So if you click on it, you're gonna see all the boundaries, right? All the boundaries. At the beginning, if you don't click on it, you have just like the two axes, right? But if you click on it, you're gonna get um, these two things, these two more lines, boxes, right? So at this stage, if you are sort of happy with this particular figure, you can try to generate a code, generate another code for all the stuff that you have done with this figure, right? So if you actually go to the files menu, right, and then you're gonna see one option that's called generate code. See, you're gonna have this particular item that's called generate code. Let's click on it. Again, inside of this editor window, you're gonna have another file that's called Untitled2. The reason it's called Untitled2 is because you haven't actually saved it yet, right? And inside of this particular code, it's basically all the commands that's being used for decorating all the figures and generating all the figures, right? But this time it's not a script anymore. It's actually a function now. See? So you have this blue word that's called function. It's a Matlab keyword. A Matlab keyword is always displayed in blue color. And then the name of the function is called create figure. And then you're gonna see all the input variables, x1, y1, s1, c1, right? And then it's gonna tell you what those things are. x1 is scatter x, y1 is scatter y. Basically, that's the horizontal and vertical axis, right? S basically specifying the size of each of the symbol, and C basically specifying the color of each symbol, right? You don't really have to use these two parameters, right? But these two parameters are kind of necessary, right? You have to sort of specify them. And then if you want to use this particular function later on, you can save it by clicking on the save button now, right? And this time it's actually not giving you a untitled.m as a default file name. It's actually giving you a meaningful file name here. It's actually called createfigure.m. See? Why? Why it's actually not actually giving you just an untitled.m? The reason is that you have a name for the function that's called createFigure. See? It's called createFigure, right? And for Matlab function, the name of the file name must be exactly the same as the name of the function. So if your function is named as createFigure, then your file name must be createFigure also, right? So let's change the function name. I click on cancel. Let's change the function name. Let's change the F to capital case. Let's create a big F figure, right? And then let's click on save button. And then let's see what's gonna happen, right? The file name, the default file name is changed to create big F figure. See? So the file name must be the same as the function name for all the Matlab functions. Right? Let's save it this time, right? So now you can sort of see that's the import script, right? And then that's the create figure. And you can sort of see the icons are different. Create figure has a different kind of icon. See? Right? So if I wanna, so here's my figure that's been decorated already, right? But let's close it. Let's close it. So suppose I wanna generate this particular figure. I don't have to use the I don't have to sort of select the two columns and then click scatter. I can just run this create figure function, but with two input parameters to it, right? So all I have to do is to do create figure, and then let me just give it the two input parameters, right? Not enough input parameters, so it looks like I have to specify what's going to be the size and color, right? So let's try something that's different. Let's just specify 5 color. Let's just use B. So it looks like the size is smaller than before, right? And then let's change something else. Maybe use 10, right? And then BO. You can always use the upper arrow to actually change the size and other things, right? So let's just so here you can sort of see how I am actually specifying the size, right? The size is basically just a number, right? Depending upon the size of the symbol, you can actually make sure that the symbols are bigger or small, right? So let's just use 50 or something. Right? 50 makes the circle very large, right? And then blue is going to be specifying the color, right? So let me just use 30. 30. 30 makes the color, makes the circles sort of looks normal, right? And then you also have all the labels on it, right? All the labels on it, fuel efficiency plot, and then the box around it, right? So it looks just like uh, those generated by the by the button, right? So 30 is like the size, and then that's the color, right? Because it requires like 4 different inputs, right? That's the size, and then that's the color. Color. If I want a blue, then it's just a B, but enclosed in a pair of single quotes, right? But if I want a sort of red, if I want to look at red circles, I can change it to R, right? This time you're gonna see red circles, see? And then if you want to look at the sort of green circles, well, then it's just the G, right? G. That's green circles. And all and this figure is generated by this particular function, and this function is generated by Matlab, right? It's auto-generated by Matlab, right? You don't really have to sort of write those codes by yourself. You can ask Matlab to generate those codes for you, right? So that's create a figure, right? How you can actually use Matlab to actually generate figures for you.